Hi, Clement here for MetaStock. In this video, I'm excited to teach you how to use Fire. In a previous video, I've actually shown you an overview of what you can do in Fire. In this video, we'll actually be talking about how to use Fire, how to build your lists, and how to do all the functions within the Fire app. So this one will be a little more technical, but it'll help you understand how to actually use Fire and get into the kind of the nitty-gritty of what Fire can do. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. Now, the first thing we always have to do here at MetaStock when we start any presentation, whether it be training or sales, we have to talk about the disclaimer. So I'm just going to read the disclaimer really quick, and then we'll get right into what we're going to be talking about with Fire. So this demonstration is designed to instruct you on using MetaStock and accompanying software plugins, and is not a recommendation to buy or sell, but rather guidelines to interpreting and using the specific indicators and features within the software. The information, software, and techniques presented today should only be used by investors who are aware of the risk inherent in trading. MetaStock shall have no liability for any investment decisions based on the use of their software, any trading strategies, or any information provided in connection with the company. So with that, let's go ahead and get into Fire. Now, I'm going to kind of give you some overviews about what Fire is, how it works. But again, this is going to be a more technical and getting into how to actually use the Fire product and plot everything within MetaStock. So in the last video, we talked about broad market indicators and what broad market indicators are. So those are movement of a market as a whole or a select grouping of stocks. And that allows us to talk about things like custom indices. And that's where we're actually going to start with our training, is actually in custom indices and building your own custom indice or index, excuse me, and then how you can put that into MetaStock and actually use it. So let's go ahead and start by going in and talking about how to create lists and build indices on your own lists. Now, what I'm going to assume as I get into this video is that you already have local data created. Fire does require local data to build lists and run its calculations. Because of the nature of the calculations, that you do need to have local data set up. If you need help setting up local data, the Fire manual has some great references for you. You can find that right on your downloads page. Other resources are, we do have some videos that show you how to set up local data. But again, I'm going to assume that you have everything set up. So here I have a few different things set up. I have the S&P 100, the S&P 500, and optionable stocks set up. Now, you may have your watch list set up or your portfolio or whatever it may be, and you can do the exact same calculations I'm about to do on your own portfolios and watch lists. So that's one of the big features of Fire, is doing this on these unique lists and databases that you may have already. So keep that in mind as we go through it. Now, to begin, I actually need to open up the Fire app and build my list. So the very first thing we're going to do is build a custom index. So let's go to the custom indices file here. Now, a few notes here. You have your last date, you have your number of periods you're going to calculate on. You can require it to have the last date, require data on the last date. I tend to leave that unchecked just in case I have today's date, but yesterday's close in there. It just makes my life a little easier to do it that way. So this is where it will output the data when it creates it. This is MetaStock data / custom indices. You can change that if you want to. Smart adjusting means it will look at the data and try and figure out if there's any issues with it and try and clean it up a little bit if it sees some irregularities in the data. So you can check that or uncheck it depending on how you want to add it. So let's go ahead and add a list down here. I'm going to go ahead and click a folder that I would like to do. Let's go up to MetaStock local data, and I am going to build a custom index of optionable stocks. So this has about 4,200 securities in it. Let's go ahead and select the folder there. I can also do this based off of lists that I have in MetaStock. So that's another way that you can do this. But let's go ahead and just select the folder and do it that way. Now, once I've selected my folder or my list, all I have to do is click calculate. And you can see it'll go through that 4,300 securities very quickly. and build me a custom index of data. So let's just give it just a second here and we'll be all set. Okay, so when it gets to this 100% point, it's basically wrapping up and putting everything together. So it may take it just a second on this 100% part as it wraps up. Okay, so it's done, it's wrapped up, and now that is all built. Once I've built my new index, I need to go back into MetaStock and load it into my custom local data list. So I'm just going to come up here, right click and go to Manage Custom Lists. And then I'm going to go to New Local List, and I want to browse for it. Now this will tell you again where it was. So it was in C MetaStock Data / Custom Indices. And it gives me the option here if I want it in CSV or legacy file format. I'm just going to select legacy file format. If you select both, it will put both into MetaStock. So let's go ahead and just choose the one, and we'll choose save, and then close this. And now here I have my optionable stock index. So I can go ahead and plot that. And then you can see I've got actually some extra data in here. I apologize for that. Let me delete out the Dow Jones. And let's just zoom in on my index data here. So you can see here I have open, high, low, close. I can plot these as candlesticks if I wanted to. I can change it to a line chart, whatever I wanted. So this data is all populated just like you would look at a normal index. So if I was looking at the Dow Jones 30 or the S&P 500 or the S&P 100, this is a custom index of that list. So again, you can do this on your watch list, your 401k portfolio, whatever you want, and build your own lists. It's a very cool way of looking at data. Then you can go in and do comparisons and things with it. Okay, but so this is an example of how you can do that. So now let's go in and talk about our next function. So we're not going to get into what breadth indicators are here. We got into that in the other video. What I want to talk to you about in this video is actually how to build your breadth indicators, okay? Because there's these 15 different breadth indicators that are built into Fire. How do you build them in the Fire app? And then what are the outputs and how do they look and what do you do with them, okay? So to calculate our breadth indicators, we need underlying data. And the underlying data is done in the Fire app in some easy ways. And so let's just go ahead and go back to the Fire app. Looks like I need to open the Fire app back up. Okay, I'm just going to close our custom index there while Fire comes up. Okay, so we've already dealt with our custom indices here. Now we're going to talk about breadth indicators. Again, you can set your last date, how many periods you want to calculate over, required data on the last date. These will output to this file right here, the C MetaStock data breadth indicators. Now, there's a couple things that you can do here. One, you can go through and you can build your own securities that are plottable by going through and saying, oh, I want the number of securities whose close is greater than their close yesterday or their 50-period moving average. So you can go through and you can build these custom indicators, if you will. Now, if we want to work with all those breadth indicators, the easiest way is to actually choose this batch calculations file here. And then mine is already populated, but if yours isn't populated, what you want to do is choose Add Default. And that will actually load all the defaults that are available from combinations to help us plot those breadth indicators. So you can see when I do that, it's got quite a number of different calculations that it loads up here. And these are what are required for the breadth indicators. Now that we've done that, I need to load in a folder. Okay, so there's actually two different things here. There's lists and there's folders. Now, if you do folders, when you calculate on a folder, all the data will automatically go into MetaStock and make it so I can plot the indicators easily. When you do lists, there's some extra steps that you have to take. Now in this video, I'm not going to go through those extra steps, but those are outlined very clearly in the manual on how to actually build the indicators for each individual list. So there are two ways of doing this. So you can choose which one you want. For this example, in this method, we are going to just do folders. But again, if you're doing lists, just dive into the manual. It'll show you the few extra steps you need to take to actually set that up. Okay, so I'm going to do the S&P 100. If I was doing a different one, I can just choose add and then go to where my data is and select whichever folder I would like to do. And then it will populate here. So I've already selected the S&P 100. I have my batch calculation set. So all I have to do now is choose calculate. So you'll notice it's going through these multiple times. So it's doing all these different batch calculations that we had set up. Now, when that is done, it actually plots it again in this MetaStock data breadth indicators folder. And you can actually go in and open up each of these files. These are all text files, and it will show you the data and how it is outputted. So you can actually look at all this data. You don't have to, just to show to you here that you can. Every one of those files is also available as a data file. So you could put them into a custom list inside MetaStock and bring them up as individual securities. But the easiest way is, once those are all calculated, is to go back into MetaStock. And let's just pull up a stock from, well, actually, let's pull up a stock. Let's pull up the OEX here. And you can see I have these indicators already plotted, and these will bring in all the values of all the different indicators. Now, to find these indicators, if they weren't already plotted on your chart, because I've done prior analysis and actually brought these up in a previous video, they're all set. Now here are all those indicators, and you can plot any of these indicators, and they use all the data that you calculated from FIRE to plot these batch calculations. So if you just opened up MetaStock without doing the FIRE calculations and tried to plot one of these indicators, you'd get an error because you hadn't done the calculations yet. So it's important to do those calculations first and bring that in. So any of these, so up here you can see I have the advanced decline line, the McClellan oscillator, the overbought, oversold, moving average above moving average. Let's just bring in another one here as an example. So we'll say how many stocks are making their new highs in the S&P 100. And this will show you how many stocks are actually breaking their new high. Just to give you, so the last date I had 2 hit their 250-day high. Here I had 2, here I had 22. So you can see that you can just bring in this data. Let's go down to FIRE and let's look at one more as an example. And let's look at 2 new lows, just as a cross example. Okay, we don't have a lot making new lows, but there are a few. And let's plot this one as purple. Okay, so not a lot going on here. So 2, 2. But if I scroll back in time to March, what happened to March in 2020, right? So here we can see that decrease in, we can see those stocks making new lows. So we had 56, we had 37, we had 25, so you can see these numbers. So this is how you go in and you calculate those breadth indicators to actually help you plot all these indicators within MetaStock. So that's using the breadth indicators tab. Okay, so let's go ahead and close that. Let's go back to our PowerPoint. Now in this video, I'm not covering what the breadth indicators are. In previous video, I did cover what some of these breadth indicators are and how to use them, and you're welcome to go watch that video. But if you do want to learn more about breadth indicators and how to interpret them and use them, which is a great resource, because breadth indicators do have a lot of power, okay? So what I would recommend you do is just go to this metastock.com/customer/resources/TAS. And let's actually just bring that up to show you here. Just get a web browser open and let's go to metastock.com. And we will just navigate from there. So we go to support, we go to resources, and then we go technical analysis from A to Z. And let's say I just wanted to learn about the McClellan oscillator. I just scroll down, I find it, and there is an overview of the McClellan oscillator, how it works, how to interpret it, how to use it. So this is a great resource for you as you use FIRE and learn more about FIRE. Okay, so let's go ahead and go back to our presentation here. All right, so our last thing that we're talking about is how to calculate external relative strength inside FIRE. So external relative strength, again, is a computation of rate of change of each instrument over the number of periods specified, and then compares to each instrument's return to other instruments in the group. So we get that ranking from 0 to 99. Let's go ahead and let's go in, let's close that, and let's go to the FIRE app, which I have again closed. So we'll type FIRE, and we'll bring up the FIRE app. And let's go to external relative strength. So this one kind of works the same way as the breadth indicators did. You have your last date time period that you're calculating over. You have where it will output to. And I always recommend leaving those outputs as default. It just makes your life easier. You don't have to go searching. You can always see where things are set right here. So time periods and relative strength calculation. So we're looking over the last 250 bars in this particular example. You can change that to whatever you want. The weights here mean it basically breaks down that time period and says, okay, well, in the initial time period, that's the most important. So that we put a higher weighting on this. And then the other time periods are about the same. If you want to change that and say, okay, hey, I want it to be 70% most recent, 10, 10, 10, sure, you can do that. So you can mess with these and set this up, okay? If you had a custom indices folder, you would check this box. We're not gonna do that here. We're just going to do, again, the S&P 100. You can do lists again here, but for this example, we're just going to do folders. So let's go ahead and calculate external relative strength. Okay, so that's all it takes. It takes just 2 seconds there to run that. Now to access the Ursa data inside MetaStock, there's 2 ways you can actually do it. One is scan and compare, which we're going to do first. And then the next is plot and rank. So we will do that second. So let's go ahead and look at the Explorer is where we want to go. We're going to scroll down and we're going to find FIRE Ursa. So here is our Ursa report. Then what we do is select our list that we just ran Ursa on. So I just ran it on the S&P 100. So we're going to run it on that. And let's go ahead and let's uncheck this and just reselect it and start our exploration. Okay, so this runs our Ursa and then gives us a number. Now, if you'll remember again on Ursa, it's ranked from 0 to 99, 99's being the highest. So I can then rank this and look for stocks that are my top movers based off of rate of change. So NVIDIA here, this is today's value, 5 days ago, 21 days ago, 60 days ago, 125, and 250. So you can see this year, NVIDIA has been our mover stock in the S&P 100. I can look at each one of these and kind of get a gauge for it. FedEx has had quite the run this year as well. Now, if I look down and look at something maybe midline here, you can see it's had some movement, but it's not one of the biggest movers here. If I go down to the bottom, XOM, again, has had a rough year. So we're not seeing that movement in the rate of change. It's going to the opposite side, so it's not a mover for us. I can then, if I want to, let me close the Explorer here for just a moment. There is another indicator in here called Fire Ursa. This is Fire Ursa of external relative strength. I can then plot that indicator, and this will give me what the Ursa was at any given point. So I can see, again, it's at, this particular one's at 0 right now, so probably wasn't my best example to bring up. Let's go back and look at the report here, and let's bring up, say, NVIDIA again, and let's put on Ursa. And you can see where it really began its move over that period of time. Now, the big question is, how do you find ones that are moving? How do you identify the big movers? So there's this, these other ones that are 20-point gainers or losers. Just to show you an example of this, 20-point gainers, S&P 100. So this is giving us the difference over 21 days. So I can see it was 64 today, 34 21 bars ago. There's my movement, and I can gauge these. So let's go ahead and open up General Motors, put on my Ursa indicator, and that is how it plots right there. So we can see that movement from here to here as it was gaining strength and becoming a big mover within the S&P 100. Okay, so that is a quick tutorial on how to actually go in and plot these different things within the Fire add-on. If you don't have Fire yet and you do want to get Fire to be able to take advantage of these particular strengths of the program, to be able to identify these broad market indicators, create your own custom indexes, calculate broad market the breadth indicators on broad market, and also be able to do that external relative strength and find those strength indicators. It is available at a one-time cost of $3.99. If you have a previous version, if you had old Fire from years ago, you do have an upgrade available. Here's our contact information, so you can reach out to us or sales and take advantage of the offer to get Fire and try it out for yourself. If you don't have it, again, it's available on a 30-day money-back guarantee to try it out risk-free. Again, my name is Kelly Clement. I hope you have found this video informative and that it's something that you can use to actually apply in your trading. Broad market, breadth, Ursa are all very powerful functions of the market and understanding them. So I do encourage you to try this out and see how it can help you. And I wish you success in your trading.